Hello and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. Upon surveying the regional threat landscape, Israel sees a much better picture than the one which loomed some 2 years ago. There is almost total calm on all fronts, with the exception being whenever the IDF responds to attempted plots against Israel either by the Islamist Hamas, the Iranian proxy Hezbollah, or cells in Syria or Judea and Samaria. But the lessons of October 7th is clearly to resist complacency, and it, therefore, remains incumbent upon Israel to identify any seemingly dormant threats and decide whether Israel should preempt them. Joining us to dissect these matters include retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt, formerly a U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs, as well as a senior officer at U.S. Central Command. I'd like to also welcome Brigadier General in Reserve, Dr. Amnon Sofrin, formerly the Chief of Intelligence at Mossad, as well as a senior officer at the IDF Intelligence Directorate. And last but not least is our TV7 editor-at-large, Mr. Amir Oren. Amir set the framework for us with regard to the theaters I've mentioned. Naturally, I did not mention the Iranian file, which is still very fluid, and naturally, it is not a calm front, to say it mildly. But nonetheless, when we're talking about the multiple fronts in the immediate circle that Israel is dealing with, what are the complexities at hand?
So as our very experienced and distinguished panelists know all too well, this is not a linear sequence of policy, assessment, operations. It's a cycle, and never-ending cycle. But if we must start somewhere, let's start with policy. What is the policy of the State of Israel, the government of Israel, regarding those potential threats? Does it want to preempt? Does it want some period of peace and quiet in order to rehabilitate the society, the armed forces, the economy? As we look around right now, there is no major threat. But it doesn't mean that these threats could emerge almost overnight, and we saw it on October the 7th.
Absolutely. Well, General Sofrin, I'd like to start with you. You served as the IDF Chief Intelligence Officer for Central Command, namely the area also includes Judea and Samaria. This territory has been very complex. It's also one of those territories that resulted, or rather triggered, the Islamist Hamas launching the atrocities on October 7th as the IDF and Israel's security establishments conducted various operations, including Operation Wavebreaker, which was the most robust one, against terror elements in Judea and Samaria, with chief focus on the northern Samaria region, where we saw a vacuum of Palestinian Authority security forces unable to assert their exclusive dominance, so to speak, or monopoly on arms there. The Iranians managed to infiltrate, to buy certain clans from within, and then start to operate within that context to foment terror against the state of Israel. Now, that has been the case back then. It is still trying to do so today. Is that something that Israel can now preempt and is feeling more comfortable in its skin, so to speak, within the framework of what we're seeing today?
I think that if we have to look at Judea and Samaria, we have to divide it into two different areas. The first one is, of course, the security area. And within the security area, I think that the Israel Defense Forces are acting very well. They took hold on two major refugee camps in the northern part of Samaria, namely Jenin and Tulkarem, that fully controlling this area and now denying any attempt to establish new infrastructures and to be able to monitor launch attacks from there into Israel. It's not only there, but because we have what we call the traditional Hamas area, or affiliated Hamas area in the area of Judea, in the southern part of Judea and Samaria, namely the area of Hebron, of Halil. I believe that there are also underground streams and should be controlled, should be denied. And we are making a lot of efforts to deny any attempt, but if you look at what happened during 2025 and you compare it to 2024, the quantity of attempts to carry out attacks against Israelis and Jews were reduced dramatically due to that capability of activity. And we have another front, which is what the Jordanian front, because they're trying to use the Jordanian front in order to smuggle weapon systems into Judea and Samaria, and we're operating in this area as well, and established a new division that will control the area and will be able to monitor the area better, in cooperation, of course, with the Jordanian armed forces, and therefore to deny any attempt to come in.
Absolutely. Well, specifically on the Jordanian front, I was reserving that for General Kimmitt. General, when we're talking about Jordan, naturally, the efforts by Iran at first, but also the Muslim Brotherhood, which has been operating in those areas quite robustly, to smuggle weaponry and other types of illicit materials into the Jordan Valley, through which it then delivered it to either Samaria or Judea, has been quite robust. There were more successful efforts to prevent this in recent months, but before that, they seem to have really worked really hard to bring about the penetration of Israeli territory. Now, the Hashemite kingdom is threatened itself by this. Naturally, the Habarat, or the domestic intelligence agency of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, is quite potent, to say it mildly, and anything that goes through their territory is usually very rapidly picked up by them. Now, there is some type of clash here of whether or not they know about certain smuggling efforts and yet aren't doing enough to prevent them, or explain this complexity to us, please.
Well, I don't think it's complex at all. The fact is, you cannot seal a border. These are, in many ways, smuggling routes from centuries going on. The fact remains is the United States has worked very, very carefully with Jordan on border security, primarily through a couple companies that I've worked with. But I think really the only thing you can say is you've got to expect a certain amount of leakage, simply because you just can't completely isolate a border and be 100% certain that nothing will get across.
Mr. Owen, add the blanks for us.
Well, you describe the GID, or the Mukhabarat, as all-knowing.
Potent.
Yes, but there is no conspiracy. They even uncovered a few years ago a plot inside the royal court. Or at least this is what the king said regarding one of his half-brothers. No, they want the Israeli-Jordanian border to be as secure as possible. And Israel, too, we know, only last week we heard about the smuggling ring within the Israeli armed forces,
Right.
reserve soldiers, and others who are selling weapons from the Israeli arsenal to criminals. So whatever leaks from Jordan into the West Bank or into Israel proper is quite normal. There is no conspiracy there. Jordan is a country at peace with Israel, and they have a stake at continuing this state of affairs.
Absolutely. You were referring, of course, to a criminal activity, a criminal rings.
Indeed.
And there is a fine line between the criminal dimension to the terror dimension, and very often they also operate together, including, of course, intelligence agencies, particularly those of totalitarian regimes and others. It's not exclusively to that, but General Sofrin, let's take another theater in question. The Syrian border of Israel is still quiet. Israel has a forward defense there, but we do see that there is an entrenchment of terror elements of the Islamist Hamas. We see efforts by various state actors to entrench not only those terror elements, but also other aspects of what they desire to see there in order to so-called disrupt Israel's forward defense and bring about a change of the character of what we see there. Looking at the situation there today, what comes to mind in your perspective?
I think that, first of all, as I mentioned before in previous sessions, Syria is not stabilized yet. Mr. Ahmed al-Shara is making a lot of efforts to get over all the minorities and to integrate them into the armed forces and to dismantle the capabilities to rebel against him and to fight him. And therefore, he began with the Alawites along the coastline, and then he went for the Kurds, and then for the Druze in southern Syria to some extent, even though they were blocked by mainly by the Israelis, most of all, and not by anybody else. They still don't have any plans to deploy any division or any armed forces south of Damascus, due to what Israel is signaling them that it won't be willing to have any presence of armed forces along its borders. And of course, all the positions that we hold inside Syria are being under daily friction with the terrorists or people that try to challenge them. This is an ongoing struggle, and as long as we are there, this will be the picture for the next coming years. Who knows how much it will take? On another
Indeed.
dimension, I want to mention that Mr. Ahmad al-Shara became more closer now with the Russian president when they visited Moscow just a week ago. And there are rumors that he came to an agreement with President Putin to deploy Russian forces on the southern part of the Golan Heights, on the Syrian side, of course. Namely, to be able to monitor the area and to control the area on behalf of this regime. If it is going to happen, of course, it should be in full coordination with Israel, and of course with the agreement of the Israeli government. And maybe this is one solution that may secure the area from what we call terrorists that we will try to infiltrate into Israel from this area.
Well, I did hear about that, and I think that we do need to take also in account the fact that this is not something that America would like to see, and Israel has not given its okay to such a development. It is a Damascus-led aspiration to see the Russians stay in that country, and Russia may be also delivering various types of munitions and weaponry to the Damascus regime to fuel its standing, so to speak, within Syria these days. Now, General Kimmitt, I'd like to hear your take on that as well. But also, if you could expand, there was just a meeting in Riyadh also of the global coalition to combat ISIS, namely the Operation Inherent Resolve, still operating in Syria in particular. It doesn't seem that they're having a lot of success despite the uptick in various operations against this terrorist or jihadist organization. We are seeing a growing number of jihadis joining the ranks of the Islamic State and seeking to revitalize what was lost during the previous Trump administration when they lost all of their territorial capabilities or grip, rather.
Yeah, first of all, I think those numbers may be a little bit inflated. Yes, we're seeing some of the former HTS fighters moving over to ISIS, but I think if you ask the commanders up in the northeast, they think they've got the situation with ISIS under control as they have for many, many years. There's not a belief that there's a resurgent caliphate anytime soon. The fact remains is we can defeat ISIS, but I don't think we're ever going to completely eliminate ISIS and its ideology from that area. Look, the United States is prepared to pull out of Syria when the time is right. We think that for the most part, the job is done. the ISIS is under control of the local forces and the national forces as well. I think we would come back in if there was a significant threat. Iraq certainly feels like it can control its own territory from ISIS. So I don't believe the United States is alarmed about the current status of ISIS, and in fact is focusing more on getting out than staying in.
Indeed. Well, some ISIS members may have put on suits and look a bit differently now, so you don't have to, treat them as such. But nonetheless, it seems that they're still roaming around.
If I can make 2.5 footnotes.
2.5 footnotes, and then divert it to Lebanon, since we still want to cover a couple of territories.
Regarding that meeting chaired or co-chaired by the Deputy Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, the other co-chair was Ambassador Tom Barrack, who is now the Supremo for the Levant, or at least does seem like that. And Syria became the 90th state, 90th member at least, of the coalition. I wasn't aware of the fact that it wasn't fighting ISIS up to now, that at least officially it waited for Ashara to take over and for American pressure to join. The footnote regarding the Russian forces, there were military police units sent by the Russian army almost 10 years ago into that part of Syria. Of course, it's not convenient for Israel or even for Jordan, but perhaps now under new management, it can be arranged.
Well, that was under the Assad regime. Today, naturally, the relationship there is a bit different, and I would suspect that the United States would not like to see the Russians in Syria altogether, but time will tell how this will evolve. General Kimmitt, would you like to remark on that?
Yeah, look, I think everybody recognizes that Shar is the new pretty girl in school, and everybody's out trying to get a date with her. Clearly, the United States has the best chance. It's the star athlete and the homecoming king. Look, if some other countries come in, like Russia, in small amounts, I don't think we're going to get too fussed about it. If they start moving combat units in, I think that would be different. We've been fighting the Wagner Group, what's left of the Wagner Group, for years and years over there. And that is not necessarily a country that we want to preclude any of our strategic competitors from coming in. I'm more concerned about China in Syria than I am about a couple of Russians that are trying to get out of their Ukraine commitments to head down to Syria to fight.
Right. And for the Chinese, obviously, in Syria, the Uyghurs being there, the ones who joined, of course, Al-Qaeda, and were fighting there next to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or together with Ahmad al-Shara and his previous life, are still there, and that is not something that is palatable for Beijing these days. But diverting now to our attention to Lebanon, looking at Hezbollah there, it seems like they continue to, I wouldn't say thrive, but politically they're still a potent force to be reckoned with. Gerald Kimmitt?
I think that's really more of a question that the expertise is on your side. The United States remains committed to the disarmament of Hamas and of Hezbollah. We obviously have a unit that's in there that's trying to facilitate that. But I think my personal view is, as long as Hezbollah is part of the political fabric of Lebanon, we're going to see great reluctance on the part of the Lebanese government to try to live up to their commitment of a total Hezbollah disarmament.
Indeed. Well, General Sofrin, I'd like to hear your take on this. And within this context, bringing, of course, the current situation with Iran into the equation, so long as the Ayatollah regime exists, can we expect Hezbollah to really desist?
No way. No way. I think that, first of all, even if the regime in Iran is going to be changed, It may be what we call a personal change and not the whole system. That means that the Ayatollahs will still control Iran for the coming years. Nevertheless, even though if the Americans are going to attack and everything else, and all the rumors that are spread around, and nobody really knows what is going to happen, for the time being, they are negotiating. And in addition, or in parallel, they are what we call gathering all the capabilities in the Middle East to be able to attack Iran if and when needed or decided. But let's put it aside for a moment because still this regime exists and is valid and is going to be valid probably for the coming years in maybe another custom, another dress, but nevertheless, it doesn't change the ideology. And therefore, I believe that Hezbollah is going to be dominant in Lebanon just like it used to be before. And that means that it maintains two kind of what we call activities. The first one is the political wing that has representatives in the government, in the parliament, and they are joining hands with Amal, the other Shiite movement inside Lebanon. And all of them together are what we call joining hands and creating some island of Shiites inside the parliament and the government. And they affect the decisions that are being made. On the other hand, if you speak about the military capabilities, rebuilding their military capability, they're restrained. They don't respond to all the attacks that Israel is launching on a daily basis on Lebanon, even on what we call ground maneuvers and ground raids into the villages to pick up people and to bring them into Israel. Nobody really raised a hand, and nobody even shot one bullet. That means that Hezbollah is considering very well if and when to react. For the time being, they understand that their capabilities to react are limited, and they will meet what we call a very decisive response. And therefore, for the time being, they're trying to rebuild their capabilities, to rearm themselves, to establish new what we call, or to nominate new commanders and new leaders on the military side. And I don't believe that the Lebanese government will be able to dismantle Hezbollah north of the Litani River. They did partly job on southern part of the Litani River, but to go beyond that, I believe it will be more complicated, and I don't see them carrying out this mission successfully.
Thank you, General Sofrin. Mr. Oren, due for a lack of time, I'd like you to focus on Gaza. We will get back to Lebanon another time, I promise. Talking about Gaza, what should we know?
I insist on one line. The Persian proxy paradox. If they have Hezbollah as a threat against Israel, Israel will strike it, and they will not have Hezbollah as their outpost in Lebanon. Now, for Gaza, let's see what the Board of Peace under President Trump does, announces, what Israel does if 8,000 Indonesian soldiers come to Gaza and, of course, hamper its freedom of maneuver. Israel would not be able to strike at will. It is going to be a new situation in Gaza.
Thank you, Mr. Oren. In a minute and 20 seconds each, General Kimmitt, are we optimistic when it comes to Gaza?
No.
You have another minute to go. Go ahead.
I don't think there's anything more I should say. I think that as long as Hamas has the capability of existing there, has some level of legitimacy among the people inside of Gaza, we are not going to see any Trump beachfront hotels anytime soon. I applaud the administration for putting together the Board of Peace. I applaud the efforts that the United States is doing to try to corral not only other countries, but provide a security solution on the ground. I applaud the fact that we're going into other countries to tin cup those countries to provide funding inside of Gaza. But I think history with terrorist organizations allowing them to exist inside of a country that I think we're going to have a problem finding a legitimate and legitimized governance structure means that we're going to have a very, very tough time with a very, very low probability of success.
You know,
Thank you,
in
Joe.
Congress, they say on such occasions, Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time to the gentleman from Israel.
Fair enough.
Indeed.
Well, I share in your optimism, General Kimmitt. General Sofrin, I hope your skepticism is not as overt.
It is. Unfortunately, it is. I believe that, unfortunately, that we can't control Gaza and we can't change totally the DNA of what happens in Gaza. Hamas is there. Hamas is armed. Hamas is not willing to be dismantled, not by anyone. And as long as Hamas is there and he has its own what we call armed capabilities, don't see them going anywhere, and I don't see the what we call international stabilizing force trying to dismantle them. Even though I heard that Indonesia is now willing to be or preparing to send 8,000 people or soldiers into Gaza Strip, I don't see any one of them trying to challenge Hamas and to go into armed clashes with Hamas in order to dismantle capabilities, and I'm not very optimistic. Hamas is there and Hamas will stay there.
Well, we'll have to dissect it at one of our panels more deeply and try to identify what is the reason that they're still trying to fuel some type of momentum based on what everybody sees, and that is a very weak foundation, to say it mildly. But this is all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank. We'll keep
What's
it
the
for another
alternative?
discussion, General.
Yep.
I'd like to thank General Kimmitt and General Sofrin for their valuable insights and optimism today. And I'd like to thank also Mr. Amir Oren, and to thank you at home until our next edition from here in Jerusalem. Shalom.
For more of TV7 Israel's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at www.tv7israelnews.com.